You really don't remember
Our adventures.
or our life together.
God, I wish I could. I don't know how to explain what's been happening. I can't tell the difference between life and dreams.
Now only on Disney Plus.
We're in the middle of a personal crisis.
Experience the 6-episode event.
Your identities. A mask to hide the scars. They are not something to be feared, but something to be welcomed.
You looked different.
Marvel Studios' Moon Knight, now streaming.
Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be my full Marvel Moon Knight Episode 2 trailer. We just got a little bit of new footage from next week's episode, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. I will be doing videos for all the episodes, just like all the other Disney Plus series. We're doing a giveaway for Disney Plus memberships. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and just leave your favorite moment from the trailer on the video. Careful for spoilers if you have not seen Moon Knight Episode 1 yet, just because we'll be talking about things that happened during Episode 1, because they'll basically be picking up where Episode 1 left off, and Stephen Grant is just starting to learn what's actually been going on. Like, we ended Moon Knight Episode 1 with Stephen Grant actually meeting Marc Spector for the first time, and the personalities within his head communicating within his head for the first time, which is a big trope of the Moon Knight comics. All of his different personalities have this sort of tentative balance and truce between them. They understand each other's importance, like they need each other to do different types of things. Right now, the TV show's only kind of showing us two different personalities, Marc Spector and Stephen Grant. And when he's in full Moon Knight regalia, like when his powers activate around him, he's in Marc Spector form. He has all of his mercenary abilities. Based on what Layla was telling him on the phone, about 2 months ago, he died with her, then disappeared. But the whole idea is that he died at the statue of Khonshu, like he dragged himself to the statue of Khonshu before he died, made the bargain with Khonshu, who raised him from the dead as his avatar. So the big thing in Episode 2, I think, is getting a piece of his backstory. We might not get every single part of his backstory and how he became Moon Knight, but we'll get a lot of his backstory. That's the whole idea with Marvel telling the story Rashomon style, where you woke up for the first time, but you see Stephen Grant before you learn about Marc Spector. Big twist, all this time you've been spending with this character, Oscar Isaac, doing this really weird British accent is totally fake. It's a totally fake identity that he slipped into at some point after he became Moon Knight, thinking that it was real for some reason. Based on some of the trailer footage that we've seen so far, I'm assuming that it has something to do with the trauma of dying and then coming back to life. And something that Ethan Hawke's Arthur Harrow character joked about with him during Episode 1 might be a clue to that. He said that he assumed that the Stephen Grant persona was just meant to be an alias, like, oh, you're doing that weird accent and using this name in this job here because it's just an alias. But then once he talks to him, he's surprised to find out that the Stephen Grant persona thinks that he's a completely real person. So I think the idea is that Stephen Grant will start learning more about Marc Spector, his backstory, and learn that he was actually just an alternate persona created by him before he became Moon Knight and used during his mercenary missions. Like Marc Spector would go to different countries as a mercenary and pretend to be Stephen Grant just to hide his true identity. But then when he died, there was so much trauma, his mind fractured even more, and he just kind of slipped into the Stephen Grant persona believing that it was real.
You weren't supposed to see any of this. What are you? You sure you want to know?
We've seen a little bit of footage of him also going to Marc Spector's locker. So if you remember when he grabbed the key in the cell phone and started learning who Marc Spector was, and Marc Spector started speaking inside his mind like, Steven, stop poking around, stop trying to figure things out, you're gonna hurt yourself. The key that he pulled out of that special cubby is actually to the locker where he keeps all of his weapons and his technology. So what'll probably happen, as we saw the time jumps during Episode 1, like he would slip between different personalities and it would feel kind of like a time jump, like something terrible would happen to him, he'd suffer some sort of head trauma or someone would attack him, and it would trigger a transformation between different personalities. He'd slip into Marc Spector, but then he'd wake up again after he'd done something really WTF as Marc Spector as Stephen Grant, not really understanding what Marc Spector had done. So when Marc Spector took over his body at the end of Episode 1, we saw the full Moon Knight costume reveal. We saw it form around his body for the first time. That was the first time we saw Stephen Grant actively try to give over his body, give over control to Marc Spector. Previously, it had been an unconscious thing. I think that'll also continue to develop through the series, like Stephen Grant will learn to have this tentative balance with Marc Spector, even though Marc Spector is the original personality. They'll figure out a better, easier way to give each other control of their body during different times. The big question right now is, why would Marc Spector need Stephen Grant? And my assumption right now is that something with the resurrection, something with the trauma of him coming back to life, made it so that his mind only has access to really critical information when the Stephen Grant personality is in command. Like Stephen Grant is learning all these new things about the Ennead, the pantheon of Egyptian gods that Khonshu belongs to, all of his sisters and brothers. Remember, I said that Boss, the Panther goddess, who Black Panther gets all of his powers from, she's also Khonshu's sister. She's supposed to show up during Thor Love and Thunder, during Gore the God Butcher's mission to go around killing all the gods. So we will eventually meet Boss, the Panther goddess. Their father Atum is the Egyptian god of the sun. He was featured at the end of episode 1 when Stephen Grant was walking through that Egypt exhibit. He was in the background here. That's his idol. Khonshu's relationship with the other gods isn't super antagonistic, but he doesn't exactly like all of them. Like, they're not buddy-buddy. Khonshu is meant to be the Egyptian god of the moon traditionally, but he's also the Egyptian god of vengeance, so part of the idea too in the future episodes is we'll learn more about the truth of the history of the Egyptian gods. Remember, they are legit gods, and they're just one pantheon of gods, so like they're not the only gods that exist in the MCU. We'll meet a bunch of lesser gods during Thor Love and Thunder, like legit gods, and people that call themselves gods. Some of them are just cosmic beings, some of them are legit gods though. Not all legit gods of the MCU are as powerful as cosmic beings, like you can have vastly different power levels. The only difference between legit gods and cosmic beings is that legit gods get most of their power from the faith of their followers, in addition to some cosmic powers. Really powerful cosmic beings like the Celestials, who are more powerful than almost everybody, not everybody, but almost everybody in the MCU, get most of their power from a really scientific source, so it doesn't matter if people believe in the Celestials. They would still exist if nobody knew that they existed. It's also why you don't see Khonshu going to try and fight the Celestials or anything like that. Like, one, he doesn't really care about them because he's really selfish, and the Celestials aren't trying to kill him because he lives in an alternate dimension. He doesn't live inside the main MCU, but also, two, he's not nearly as powerful as the Celestials. We learned during episode 1 that Ethan Hawke's character Arthur Harrow is the avatar of Amit, who technically isn't really part of their pantheon. She's just a lesser god who's part of their pantheon who did what they wanted to do, like the original boogeyman who served a purpose. But it sounds like a long time ago, like in ancient history, she went rogue and tried to physically enter the main MCU dimension and gain way more power in the process, and judge everyone instantly on the spot, going full Minority Report, killing anyone who would ever do evil things. And even though Khonshu, for instance, doesn't really care about humanity, he's a very selfish god, like I said, even he would balk at something like that. Like, if you killed half of the people, that would kill half of our followers. We would get way more weak as a result. That's bad for us, but also, too, that's just a really shady thing to do, of all the shady things you could do. There's also a bit of a sly wink at Khonshu versus Marc Spector. So when Marc Spector becomes the avatar of Khonshu, Khonshu gains a special connection with him, and he gains control over his body, like a limited ability to control his body. So a lot of times you'll see Marc Spector fighting Khonshu for control of his body when Khonshu asks him to do something that's really shady or that he doesn't want to do. That's why when he tried to give him the Scarab Beetle of Stephen Grant, Khonshu closed his fist, like it was Khonshu controlling his body, keeping him from doing that. Also, the different personalities can have a sort of war with each other, so each different personality in his head can fight each other for control of the body. But the whole idea with the Layla character, like you see the footage from episode 2, where she's talking to him about remembering their adventures together, is Layla figuring out who Stephen Grant is, and Stephen Grant learning more about his history. All this footage of him visiting Egyptian monuments, then falling into the water like Arthur Harrow's men shooting him, trying to kill him, is probably something that happened in flashbacks when he was becoming Moon Knight for the first time. All the footage of him in London, coming into costume and Layla seeing him as Moon Knight for the first time, like, wow, Mark, you look a little bit different, is probably her eventually coming to where he is in London in present day and just figuring out what's been going on with him this whole time. Like, oh, you've been here for the last 2 months. All while Arthur Harrow's coming for him in present day, and she's just there for a lot of that, just witnessing it happen. Like, wait a minute, you died and became this mass vigilante avatar of one of the real gods of the MCU, the Egyptian pantheon, and you're talking to this mysterious Khonshu god figure that only you can see? Remember, anytime that Khonshu is speaking to him, he's speaking inside his head. So, Arthur Harrow, even though he has this special connection, he's the avatar of Amit and has godly power, can't hear Khonshu when Khonshu is speaking to Marc Spector. But if it wasn't clear where all of his power comes from, those special crocodile head cane in the bands, the tattoo that shifts on his arm when he's grabbing people, all that power comes from Amit, the same way that Marc Spector is the avatar of Khonshu and gets all these Moon Knight powers from him. And the whole idea is that Arthur Harrow says during episode 1, when he's using his power judging someone, having their soul sucked out of them, you're only getting a fraction of Amit's power. It's the same idea with Khonshu. Like, Khonshu only has a fraction of his power in the MCU while he's trapped in this alternate dimension. But the idea during season 1 with this special Scarab Beetle is they're trying to use it to find a way to bring all the Egyptian gods, or at least Amit, into the MCU, where she'll gain way more power. Gods can go between different dimensions like any other god, but they're most powerful in the dimension where their followers originally came from. But my full episode 2 video will post next week after they release it. I'll do a couple more bonus videos before then. If you have any special requests or are there any big Easter eggs that you have questions about from this trailer, just write them below in the comments. I'll name a giveaway winner the next time I post a Marvel video. Everyone click here for my full Moon Knight Episode 1 video, and click here for my Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer video, which is going to be premiering right after Moon Knight ends. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.